Yeah. Looking at what is in the paragraph, but also reading the play, a lot of what's laid out here in terms of their preparation for the backpack trip and all of that, I'm asking myself, as I'm looking at the synopsis, why are they doing these things? What does this thing that they're doing have to do with what the play is about? And really, a lot of the beginning of the play is about them preparing for this backpacking trip. Because what I'm to get from these three friends, is that they believe they are prepared for anything, and that they know how to be prepared for anything. And so I've cut all of the specifics about what they're doing, which are plot points, and just said they think they're prepared for anything that life has to throw at them. The other thing I did, talking about like not revealing too much, I did want to leave in the fact that a tragedy strikes, but I took out the fact that it happens to one of them, because I think that kind of sets us up to be expecting something. And so I didn't want the kind of tragedy that we were looking at to be too specific. So I took that out, but I did add in that the tragedy strikes in their own front yard, because it's a nice turn of phrase, and in fact the tragedy does happen in their own front yard. So,
oh, so you're not lying.
So I'm not lying,
okay,
it's also
good.
a plot point. And then the final question about the, can they survive the immense and unexpected wilderness of life? Again, I'm taking the essence of what Dano actually did write in the synopsis, and I'm also looking at sort of the germ of the play, which is why we're watching them deal with all of this backpacking and this preparation, and how none of that prepares them for actually life and testing their friendships. I also there was another thing in here, I think earlier, about, what ensues is a test of an old friendship, which is, I'm not a big fan of ensues. There's certain phrases or certain words like ensues that I'm not a fan of, because they sort of give me this feeling that things happen that are out of control in a bad way. And I'm looking for things that allow the characters to be in control and take action and make choices. So I just got rid of that. So yeah, I mean, this one really got condensed.
When you say I got rid of that, I'm curious. Is this happening while you're in rehearsals in Idaho with the playwright? Where is this happening?
No, actually, this is happening for right now. I'm in the midst of doing this with the playwrights that we'll be working with in June. And so it's really the first step in the development process. And actually, I say I got rid of it, but really what I do is, I may take this, I don't tell them what they're going to do, but I would take this and probably what I did and what I do with most of them is I'll play around with it, because what I'm trying to do in this case, these are plays in development, so they're going to change. And I'm trying to figure out if I'm on the right track sometimes. So probably what I did was I sent him back 3 different versions of the play. And he would send back to me and say oh, that's not the play I'm writing. This is the play I'm writing. And a lot of times that's what's really useful about it to the playwright, is it makes the playwright have to say, oh, yes, that, no, that. So, so this actually happens over the course of, anywhere between, 3 and 10 emails in which the playwright will say, well, this part of this works, this part of that works, I'm missing that, and so we, kind of come to it all together. But at the end of the day, I mean, for us, what the playwright decides is the final version is the final version. But
well, that's what a good agent does that too, don't you, Morgan?
Good agent, what I don't. Yeah.
What? Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I'm just curious,
yeah,
sort of how do you...
very much we do try to do a similar thing. I have a lot of writers, so some of them I'm able to do, easier than others. But yeah, it's exactly what we do in terms of this list that we're putting together. I ask for an initial, synopsis from the writer, and then we do very similar process, with these kind of what's active, who's, the character, what are we following, what's the germ of it, can we have a reversal, can we have a sense of the emotionality, and then can we, give an indication of what the central theme is and what the essence of the play is, and can we do that in 4 sentences? So it's a very, very similar process. I'm delighted to know that it's being done. So do you do a workshop with writers on this? Like just
You know,
like.
no, but maybe we should.
I would encourage you because I think it's such a valuable thing for exactly what you're saying. It's like that I'll tell you a little anecdote. I was just in Chicago to see a play with a writer. It was really a wonderful writer, and it didn't go so well, and he was very unhappy the way the play was marketed. And then again, some of the reviews sort of looked at it a certain lens, and he wasn't able to really have, the control of the marketing. And so, can I read the?
Oh, sure,
yeah. So in the heat of the 1960s, you can't blame a rich kid for wondering where his priorities lie. There's your dad who wants you to carry on the family business. Your friends who don't know you have money are trying to build a new way of living. There's a renegade professor, and sex, of course, some pot, naturally. And you know what comes after sex and drugs, a comedy about youth and living with the consequences of how you spend it. Which kind of, sounds like a sort of, okay. First of all, his friends do know he has money pretty soon because he pays for them to stay in this Vermont house. And, so I thought, well, this is not the play, it doesn't sound like the play. And it kind of sets you up for this kind of, we're just going to be like here, in the 60s and we're living loosey-goosey.
And when you say you know what happens when blah, 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 it sort of makes you go.
Yeah, it's like, so this was what was being sent out. This is what the audience was coming into. This is what the critics, And so this was their PR. This was their PR. And so I said, okay, we're going to change this as we sort of pursue the play. And we're just at the beginning of like saying what it is. So there were two things that so far, and I asked him if I could talk about this, since I said this is perfect timing because I'm going to this thing tonight. So today he says, and this is not, the language hasn't been crafted yet, but this is a difference in terms of what this play is. He said, for me, the show is about how, even in the middle of an era that attempted to embrace the ideals of classlessness, who has dough ends up being the determining factor.
That's so much more.
Plus, no, and that's the play. And I said, well, you need to craft the play a little bit of the way about this loosey-goosey stuff, which kind of was annoying. I said, you need to when you do the rewrite, and that is it. Because basically, it is about this kid that has money. The other thing is, it's a Henry IV situation. The kid is Prince Hal. The professor is Falstaff. His friend is Poins, and the father is Henry IV. So it really is not blatantly, and he doesn't want to reference it because he doesn't want to, But the fact that it's Henry IV and that it is Prince Hal who's being caught between what his business father wants him to do, and then, very much attracted to this professor who's trying to write a book of the people's history, and the plot, and there's a plot twist in the play that Howard Zinn's book comes out. Because they can't. They've been spending years in this Vermont thing trying to, write this history. It's a wonderful play. But the thing is, that core of Henry IV needs to really be, dug into a little bit. And the whole idea is that the central idea, which would be the last sentence that I would go for, is that thing that he sent, where it is about the fact that this kid has money. He can go off and pretend to be, leftist hippie, and then he can go right back to running his father's company. Meanwhile, his, friends who don't have money, are living this life, and then when, he goes back, he's guilty, and he sort of pays for their, for them to stay in the house. But meanwhile, years are passing, they're not doing anything, and they have to leave the house. The other thing he said is kind of the anti-cherry orchard, where you have to leave the house. I mean, the things about what he's talking about, the way he's talking about the play, makes it much more interesting, right?
Yeah.
To hear about. I mean, that immediately is going to say, I want to see this play. And he's got to, and in the thing, he's got to, sort of like refine it. He said, oh yeah, I got away from that. That's what I wanted to do, because everybody was talking about, oh yeah, the 60s and pot and sex. I'm like, oh yeah, let's hang out with them.
Right.
So that type of thing, So this just happened. This just happened
great.
this weekend and today.